Delighted that Isabel Oakshott joins my cabinet to discuss that interview and other things. Isabel, it's a quick question. Despite Ben Wallace's sort of answer, do you think the government does get it? Do you think they acknowledge that actually our armed forces aren't fit for purpose?
Well, we've been completely caught out, haven't we? I mean, look, what happened was, after Iraq, after Afghanistan, there was a kind of collective feeling, and particularly among voters, we're not doing this again. You know, we've done years and years of war, we've sent troops places, it hasn't worked out. Afghanistan has been a complete disaster, so we're not going to do this again. We're going to row back, we're going to cut the army back, we're going to completely diminish our armed forces. And now, guess what? There is a war in Europe, and we have been found wanting. And I think what is so significant about the way Ben Wallace has responded to this criticism that we're not a kind of top league fighting force anymore, certainly on land, is he's not actually denying it. You know, you might expect that to have caused a diplomatic row. You might have expected some pride to come into it, for him to get, for want of a better word, rather defensive. And instead, he's basically saying, actually, you know what? Kind of, they're right about this, and I need more money, folks, and more resources.
71 billion quid, right? So let's look at to you, Denise. 71 billion pounds during times of economic uncertainty. You're going to tell me that's too much to spend on defence?
I think it is too much to spend on defence, especially
do you want the Russians to come over here?
I think...
Because that's what's going to happen if we don't defend ourselves. Look what's already happening. Effectively, we are already at war with Russia.
If I can respond... I don't think that £71 billion is a good use of money to be spending on warfare. If you consider what's being spent in terms of our public services, if we were to put that money into our public services, we would have a much better response in terms of the issues we have today, like addressing strikes. So the question about whether we are likely to experience an invasion, I don't think is likely.
Do you think the Ukrainian people 5 years ago thought that they would, a sovereign nation would be absolutely run over by that madman Putin? I mean, the point is quite valid. Alex, to bring you in, people will say, and they're starting to, and I'll take your point, they're starting to say, you know, 2.3 billion, Rishi Sunak said last week, will go to the war effort in Ukraine. The people who support that war will say it is our war, and if something is not done, it's going to impact on us. What's your view?
Yeah, well, do you know what? I'm a big student of geopolitics. I follow it fanatically, and while everyone's looking at Ukraine, there's a lot of other stuff going on. You've got joint military exercises, Russia, China, and now South Africa. They're going to try and control global trade routes. China's building up its military.
You're talking about BRICS.
With Iran.
You are talking about
no,
BRICS.
But this affects
BRICS is a completely different conversation.
This affects the globe.
BRICS is a completely different conversation because the question around BRICS and around the geopolitical north and south is a very important
geopolitics.
No, it's not about me. I'm not saying I don't understand. I have a different opinion from yourself, which is not lacking understanding.
Well, you didn't seem to listen to what I was saying, which is you've now got joint military exercises. China, Russia, Iran, South Africa, they're looking to close off global trade routes. They're looking to essentially take command of the world with, I suppose, what one could consider a new world order, an anti-Western order. And if we're not prepared for this, we've seen that hybrid warfare has played a significant part and will continue to, but traditional warfare is alive as well.
Hold on a second. Do you both understand that out there, not in geopolitical terms or not in the bubble that is Westminster, and Isabel, you know this because I say it every night, people are skint. People are struggling to do anything, and they will look. And I think we should have a strong army, but just one second. They will look and they will go 71 billion. People will agree with Denise Big Star.
I'll tell you what they shouldn't agree with, and that is characterising it as 70 billion spent on war. This is money spent on peace, on avoiding war. And the idea that people think, oh, this is about stopping Russia invading Britain, that's not how modern warfare works. Now, what we've seen in Ukraine is it can work in that way, and many people in political circles were pretty taken aback to find out that armies still invade, actually. But modern warfare is so much more sophisticated than that.
It's a business.
Parish. Don't forget, so many countries are in NATO, we're in NATO, you've got Poland that's being threatened, not only the Ukraine, so therefore we have to have the armed forces. What I actually agree with Ben Wallace, and what is good about Ben Wallace, is he's very straightforward. He will actually tell you what's actually happening, and therefore I don't think it's actually too about numbers. It's actually about making sure the troops we have got are very well equipped, you see, and that is the key, because you only have to watch what's happening in Ukraine. With the right equipment, you can actually stop a massive army, and that's what's happening. And I think
stage,
we haven't got
millions
we haven't got
invested.
enough tanks. We haven't got enough planes for our aircraft carrier. All of these things have got
And
to
I
be
would
sorted,
add
and that's
that
where we need to do more.
But the COVID response without the armed forces would have been even greater catastrophe. You know, we needed them to carry out operations on the ground, civilian operations.
Can I ask you a question, because we're going to do more on this? Did you, Isabel, get the feeling when you were talking to Ben Wallace, and this might be a ridiculous question, that sticking his head above the parapet was actually an attempt to lay down a marker and say to Sunak, I want more, garner public popularity for that, and use the opportunity to... Is he swimming against the tide?
He's a politician. That's not a ridiculous question at all. Look, the timing of this is very significant. We are now in the run-up to the budget. This is a really critical time for all cabinet ministers to secure their budget. So, yes, Ben absolutely knows he's lobbying now. He's very open about that. And he's not going to get what he wants, but the more he ramps it up publicly...
Can I just say, we've got another clip, actually. You asked him about the spend on aircraft carriers. Watch this, my friends.
Our aircraft carriers were 2 aircraft carriers for £6 billion and a bit more, but not great more. The USS Gerald Ford, I think, which is the latest US aircraft carrier, $13 billion, right, and was significantly. It's not the only country that takes challenges to develop these pieces of kit, but secondly, they take time, and the problem with time is threat changes, technology changes.
Yeah.
The thing about Ben Wallace is, with all the sleaze and the corruption and everything that's through it, this man's got credit in the bank, and he's a military man. And I would imagine that this interview will resonate with a lot of people, Neil.
It will, because, I mean, he was saying there, I mean, the Americans have got 11 aircraft carriers with 80 aircraft on each. We've got 21 on ours, we could do with 48, and we've got two of them to actually arm. And so, but I think the other issue for the defence and for the ministry is to make sure, as we procure these weapons and these planes and these tanks and everything we procure, that they actually get value for money. Because if you actually look at the procurement process within defence for years, it has been an absolute madness. And so, therefore, let's get that right, because then we get value for money. We haven't had value for money, and we also need to use our own defence facilities and manufacturers more than we do at the moment, because then we get proper service.
Denise makes the point that a lot of people will also agree with, that this seems like an enormous amount of money at this time. So would you understand that?
What I was trying to get the Defence Secretary to admit, and he wouldn't quite go there, is that basically our aircraft carriers are obsolete. And that is a huge admission for a government to make. Bear in mind, they were commissioned in the 90s. The whole nature of the threat has changed. All the kind of kit that you've got to stop aircraft carriers being any use has changed, added to which one of our 2 aircraft carriers has spent more than half of its life out of action because it's got so many problems. These are not modern pieces of kit. They're not really fit for the modern hybrid threat.
Alex, do you understand Denise's opinion? Because many people will look at this and go, I understand Ukraine. I don't think the Russians... I mean, let's put it in layman's terms. I see this thing. I'm a bit tired of hearing about Ukraine because I'm struggling, actually, to pay my electricity bill and send my kids to school and put food on the table. You've got to understand that.
Of course I understand it, but the thing is I understand a broader picture as well. And it's interesting, actually, what Neil was raising about our home aerospace and defence industries. We're one of the world leaders in this area. We're devising brand new pilotless or potentially pilotless supersonic aircraft to update all of our current fleet that we've got. We can sell those internationally. Do you know, actually, creating robust defence and investing our defences and armed forces here has a trickle-down effect to building up those industries, which create a huge amount of jobs, potential employment, and huge diplomatic leverage on the world stage.
Denise?
Our focus should be on looking after our people at home. We shouldn't be spending a lot of our time as an outsourced police force for the United States in their wars.
With the greatest
no,
respect,
thank you. I don't agree.
You say... I'm not asking you to agree. I'm getting a different opinion. You say we should look after our people at home. Isn't the essence of a defence that's adequate that you're protecting the bloody people at home?
We're giving all of our machinery, so is across Europe. We are depleting our stocks across the piece. We are exposed. We are exposed.
What are you talking about?
Where I would disagree totally is it's not that we are backing up the Americans. I mean, why are the Americans actually helping us out so much in Europe?
Right.
That's a question we need to ask, and therefore we have got to step up to the plate as well. So have the Germans, so have the French, so has everybody, because we have got to protect ourselves. Because if you don't stop Putin, it's not Russia, it's Putin, it's that regime, and he will actually destroy us.
Isabel, you look perplexed.
Many of those countries, and he has got to be stopped. We did. Surely we have learnt the lessons of the Second World War, have we not?
This is going to be our
about
own Afghanistan.
collective-
This is going to be
This is much closer. It's
This is
Europe,
going to be
and we
Europe's
need to sort it.
Afghanistan, and it's going to go on and
Listen,
on
No, it's
and
not.
on.
Denise, do you think we should just not be in NATO then? Is that your idea?
I think that we should be very clear on the wars that we outsource and get ourselves
but
involved in. And at the moment,
collective defence
let me
doesn't
answer
work
the
like
question.
that.
Let me answer the question. At the moment, we are engaged in a proxy war which is going to drag on, and it is going to affect the UK and everybody in NATO. It's already doing that. It's doing that
So
in
to
Europe.
answer the question, do you think we shouldn't be in NATO?
I don't
Well,
necessarily
there
know.
we go. Your silence
Do you
speaks
know what? I'm
volumes.
telling
Well, I
you, when
don't
you've got-
necessarily
Alex,
know
these
if that. I
super- when
think
you-
NATO is a very aggressive force. They have
Aggressive?
They have
That's
gone into
absolutely
Afghanistan.
ridiculous.
They have
That is
gone into
insane.
Afghanistan.
Oh,
They went into
come on.
Libya. They have already been in those
Oh,
places, and
dear.
they
So
have.
Alex,
They have
Who was
created-
it that went into Ukraine?
Yeah, they
was
have
it
been-
the Russians?
I
think
accept.
it
I
was.
accept the
It
position.
wasn't anything to do with
No,
NATO.
no, I
And
accept the
NATO is
position.
there
Just to
protect
finish,
I
Alex.
accept the position that it's an
from that.
illegal invasion. I
Isabel-
accept the position.
Excuse me, Isabel's got her head in her
Sorry.
hands. Alex,
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
finish it up for me.
Well, listen, I'm telling you what, when you've got China, Iran, Russia sitting around a table, all sharing anti-Western sentiments and ready
Yeah.
to pool resources, you will regret if we are found wanting.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I think there's a lot of different opinion out there, and today I may be the outlier, but not necessarily outside.
Listen, fascinating, all of you. Thank you, Isabel Oakshott. Fascinating. More on Tom Newton-Dunn on First Edition from 10 o'clock. Is that right? Yeah, absolutely 10 o'clock tonight. Alex Phillips, you're welcome back anytime. Neil Parish, Denise Headley, thank you very much indeed. Now.